All right. Thank you and everyone for joining the Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 160. I don't know, was the music working for you guys? Because I felt like I heard it on one device, but I feel like I don't hear it on another device now. So that's interesting. All right. Sorry about that. That was interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I thought I got the music working, but perhaps I am incorrect. But anyway, thank you everyone for coming to IOV Foundation New York, episode 160. I put up in the title today Gen AI, just to, of course, keep us in the loop of maybe we could speak about a couple of references back to AI's data aggregation capabilities in an effort to speak about a video I'm going to go get, and I'm going to post up top real quick, from Michael Levine, speaking from the Tufts University, as well as he's part owner of CEO of a bioengineering company, where they are speaking about, and of course Michael Levine being all the way going back to 2017, 2018, a professor who had generated a proof of a xenobot, so taking cells from a salamander and essentially being able to take the embryos and create multiple embryos from a single cell embryo, an embryonic cell, and the cool anatomical ways that these cells would still generate a salamander in the same proportions of scale that the salamander would have grown to, yet with an entirely different cellular count, cellular positioning, if you will, from an anatomical point of view of space. So, I'm going to go into a little bit of the agentile material that we and all of chemical or organisms are made out of. And I think, I'm going to try and break what he speaks, because the video I'm going to post up top, well, actually I should really get this, speaks at a little bit of a higher level about this subject. And I'm going to try and speak about it from an understandable point of view from everyone, because even some of the things that he speaks about, when it talks about specific drug use cases and how they're targeting those drug use cases, and the bioelectrical compositions of the drugs that are being used in this particular instance for different methods of getting whatever formation of generated agentol materials instructions. Yeah, it's very interesting, the the factor of how the bioengineering is working and agentile material in general, which is, it's not really like a term I've heard too much until I've watched Michael Levine's things, and him being one of the people who use this term platonic space of minds, which I very much so think is an interesting factor in the underlying subatomic realm of the macroscopic space that we live in. But yeah, anybody, please before hit the request to come up. I posted the video up top. It's a 54-minute video, so probably wouldn't say for anybody to go watch it while the space is going on. I'm going to try and keep it like 30, 45 minutes. But if you want to, after speaking in the space, if you want to reference back to the video, I think it'll help highlight everything that we've spoken about and give you a little bit more of a detailed explanation of exactly what is occurring from a scientific standpoint, testing wise, already in the public sphere. Yeah, welcome up, Ben, Vet, and Dazzling. How you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for bringing us up. Um, to be honest, when I read bioelectric, I was thinking of Storm actually. She plays the sounds and does sound therapy, and I figured that sound and sound waves, vibration, maybe they also induce electric um, components or something like that into the body. And so that, just as a side note, got me thinking.
GM.
When you,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Dazzling. Go ahead. I had a friend
Yeah.
try.
Oh no, all I was going to say is I don't know who Michael Levine is either. I do hear about him often from a lot of you folk, and I just kind of tying this in and around what your space before, Vet, because I hadn't also heard of Brad, so I went on LinkedIn and I had a quick look over there, and impressive, 8 years at Ripple. But one thing that stood out to me was he was a director of data science there at one point at Ripple, and I think a lot of people miss the fact that a data scientist is a very important key player in any business, especially in this kind of industry. The ability to kind of bring all that together and then visualize the data and also articulate it to investors and your colleagues and all this kind of stuff is very important. And so because I went down the data science path in about 2016, 2017, and when I was going through a lot of it, some of the material that I was going through was coming from a scientific perspective on how to collect a lot of data and visualize it. So, you talking about, Michael Levine and, all this bioelectric stuff is kind of making me think down that analytical path again, and kind of inspiring me to open up Jupyter Notebooks again and see if we can play around with some R or something like that. I haven't touched any R in a long time. But yeah, kind of start playing around with that again, just to kind of scratch up on all that, and just maybe even see what they have kind of discovered these days, or any new data that I might be able to play around with. Because yeah, like I said, I haven't done any of that in a long time. So, but yeah, definitely inspiring me, man. So it's really cool.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know anything about this subject at all, but I love coming in here to learn. So, so teach me.
Who's your PFP? Is that Muhammad Ali?
No, it's an actor by the name of Dwayne Jones. He was a little known actor. He played in a movie. He was a lead actor in a movie called Night of the Living Dead in the '60s. The character's name is Ben, and he's actually the person that my father
Whoa.
my father my father named me after that, because the night that my mother found her, the day that my mother found out that she was pregnant with me, they went to a drive-in midnight movie, and they watched Night of the Living Dead. So my dad liked the name, and so that's me.
Wow. Ben. Whew.
This is my final PFP, my swan song.
Now we know how your name came together. Damn, that was deep.
That was a
Yeah.
cool little factoid there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Also, I look exactly like him. No, I'm just kidding.
You don't sound like.
I don't sound like him. He doesn't talk very much. He was the first non-white actor in film, in horror film, to be the protagonist. So I actually met the director of the film later in life. It's a very interesting story. I do not want to take away from this fantastic space, but we can talk about it later. I want to learn more about. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know very much about biological engineering. I did hear a very interesting fact. There was a debate that I was reading about how much electrical energy is required to actually make the brain work. I don't know if that ties into anything that this subject is about, but I find it very interesting.
Yeah, low amount of wattage. We don't run on a ton of electricity. However, the electricity that our cells are outputting is to a 99.99% efficiencies. So no, very little waste to the energy that's being used. Which of course in conventional systems there's always anywhere between like 8 to 15% is pretty normal. Even in nuclear systems, for to have a waste heat and energy. It's so a gentle material. Actually, and Ben, if you want to keep going, I was enjoying all the facts.
The brain wattage, or the story about me meeting George Romero. You want to hear that story? I mean, it definitely doesn't have anything to do with bioelectrical. So we can wait till the end. It's up to you. It's up to you.
You'd be surprised on how I think it does actually have to do with it. But yeah, go ahead.
All right, let's do this. So I actually told this story in a space recently. I'll keep it very quick because I tend to elaborate. So a friend of mine in high school, he had been dating the daughter of George Romero. He is now deceased. I've always been an avid film fan. I've been a huge fan of his work. And so when I found out that my friend was dating, they met. This is, I mean, we're not even. I think I just turned 21 when I got to meet him. During the summer, we all went to go and visit, his daughter in Pittsburgh, where the original film was actually done. They still lived out there, so I'm all excited to meet him. I'm excited to tell him the story, about my name, and of course, he's not a big celebrity, but it was the biggest celebrity that I had ever met at that point. I've met some other celebrities. That's another space that I'll take over of yours. So we had gone to the house to pick her up, and she was definitely very shy about the fact that like a lot of weird people, would like track her down and stuff like that, and her father and things like that. But I just, figured I'd shoot my shot. When I met him, I said, "Hey, listen, I'm like a really big fan of yours, and I have this really crazy story." So I told him what Vet did, and he reacted with a German accent, surprisingly, just like, "No, I'm just kidding. It's not German." But he was so taken aback by my story that my father had named me after his character. He's like, "Would you like to, come inside and see some of the stuff?" And then his daughter was like getting like really mad. So they left. And here I am with George Romero in his house. I just met him. He has no idea who I am. I just met his daughter like one other time. So like I don't even know her. And him and his wife were like making me tea, and he's showing me around the house, and his house is totally like what you would think like a director of like a very famous horror director. He's really a very famous horror director if you know anything about that. If you don't, you're probably thinking the story is very strange. Uh, it was great. He gave me like a 4-hour masterclass while they were out drinking at the local Pittsburgh bars. I was going through there, and we talked about everything. I was talking about all these films, and it set me on a course. He kind of helped me and a little bit, and gave me some information. I actually saw the original script that Dwayne, the gentleman that I'm pictured in right there. I saw the original script with his hand notes in there. He was a professor of at NYU for many years, and he died a couple of years after I was born. It was pretty great. It started me off there. I actually really inspired me to kind of get involved in writing. I'd always been very heavy in creative writing, and right after school, I kept in touch with his daughter a little bit, and she kind of helped me and helped my friend too. He did some production on there, and I for a brief time while I was living in New York City, I was actually a television screenwriter for a very short period of time. That's not something I don't think I've ever said publicly, or at least in the spaces. Yeah, that's what I was doing before that, and pitched a couple of TV shows. I got paid options, and I owe it all to George Romero and this very handsome black man you see on my PFP. So that's my story.
That was pretty deep. I didn't suspect so much richness to come from you today, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you like film? Are you into these horror movies?
I like to think of horror as more of comedy to myself, but the old ones, the old styles.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, no, not really typically horror movies, but
yeah, they're not as they don't tell the stories. It's just interesting because like it was a vehicle for telling the things about social unrest and political and many different topics that we can't talk about now, and it had to be masked in that cheesy horror, so it wouldn't be taken seriously, so that people wouldn't watch. So to me, it's more of a history class than it is,
Wait, that we can talk about or cannot talk about?
That they couldn't talk about. So obviously race relations was like a big deal back then. And Night of the Living Dead is about zombies that have come to this town, and they've just essentially taken over just the world's population without any reason. And the movie is really based about consumerism, right? So that's really what it was. He actually emphasized it with another movie, Day of the Dead, where it literally takes place in a mall, right? Just to make it even more obvious. So there's a lot of Yeah, just horror has always been an outsider kind of thing. I've always been an outsider thinker. I feel like I'm attracted to the outside more than the inside, you know. So that's kind of like where I landed, and you know, it's very interesting how you go down the journey that you do. Maybe people here have the same experience, meeting people, connecting with people on these levels. I think it's a very profound thing, and it's very short. It's very precious. You should hold on to it because it doesn't last very long. So, not financial advice. There was no, he's gone. That's it. You'll never see him again. Listen.
I think your microphone might have started to die there at the end there, Ben. It was you went from
You're
speaking
breaking
to
up a little bit. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's me.
sorry, what was that? You sound like a robot at the towards the end there. I don't know. Maybe you walked away from your phone if you're on a Bluetooth right now, and the connection started breaking. Actually, sounded something very
That's
similar.
weird because you sound like a robot to me. So I'm going to move now real quick and I'm going to come back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like how he was saying, about kind of tying it with zombies there, and basically kind of an apocalypse style. And then the title is, bioelectric, kind of engineering. So yeah, let's hope we don't end up in that world.
Well, it's all perspective, right? And that's why I like that Ben also brought up the horror and his perspective of horror movies having, contextual architecture behind the substrate of the particular articulated uh, thing that we reference to from movie and subtext or metadata of movie, the information that's entangled in all of the states that are occurring inside of the film to the exact same actionable states in sequence to a cell, right? So take a cell and then take all of the metadata that is deriving this one particular cell's action. Typically, we look at the DNA right sequence and the proteins that are being articulated from that cell from the DNA to the cell, which makes the cell act in its own way. But then you take it to this larger perspective, like the entire film itself, right? Having all of this subtext where from one scene to the next, you have a articulation that becomes much more ingrained in all of the subtext, right? The understanding of how much more in depth that this actually goes, the possibilities of what's being spoken about, and so the cell as a collective agency. And this is where I like this term agentile material because all of us are made up of this agentile material. All biological structures are made up of agentile material, where there is a collective interaction, and through even just whether it be um, drug induced or anatomical. So instead of it being just essentially just chemical based reaction from chemicals to chemical, the anatomical observation of cells being able to have this communication where the material has a set agenda on what it is going to do prior to any form of interaction, like say that it had on the outside world, right? Um, I think it's a really close synaptic bridge from how you were speaking about, Ben, right? These horror movies and the subtext that exists behind a production or a film, and in comparison to how our cells actually are very interestingly kind of this same subtextual architecture, and where then the collective communication through the agentile material as a whole, multiple cells, groups of cells in different places, the liver, the kidney, all having this same kind of subtext, this metadata that you wouldn't essentially looking at a liver, you wouldn't say, well, the liver is comprised of a collective of agents that are all having agendas, and each one of them having different agendas somehow becomes a collective agenda in which the liver is generated, right? And then there's a liver, and there's a border between the liver and all of the other agentile material, which would be associated with some sort of different construct of an agenda. So I just, yeah, interesting bridge, and I thank you for sharing it, though, Ben. How was that bridging the two?
It's exactly what I was going to try and get at before I started breaking up. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how you did that. But that was very good. Yeah, sorry, I'm on speaker now. I don't know what's happening with my microphone situation.
You sound much better.
Okay, good.
What,
Okay, good. I'm just screaming into my phone.
it's the headset thing. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I just have these AirPod situation. It's not great.
Always with the AirPods too, man. It's such a weird instance that seems to be always what causes people issues. And sometimes it's just as simple as shutting it off and turning it back on.
Yeah, you would think.
Right. So back to the bioelectric composition. Thinking about everything that exists, right? All of our reality being a frequency resonating at a particular state of energy. Us being completely comprised of what we would call bioelectric agency. So instead of it being as we perceive solid material to be just a state of photons interacting, there is I guess a good way, an easy way to put it would be a much larger complexity of interactions that has then formulated this particular state of energy. But us nonetheless being a state in which energetic reactions through their substrates of evolutionary emergence have evolved us to be the exact ways that we are. So thinking about how we could use the thought of this agency to make material, which is us, in much greater fashions than the agency itself is composed of today. Okay, one great example is if you take a small child, and of course nobody try this, please. If you cut your fingertip off as a child, you actually have a really large percentage chance that the fingertip is actually going to grow back. There are some other parts of the body as well where you could have, say, some sort of disjunction between the anatomical space of the cells, right? Your finger or a piece of something getting cut off, and the agenda of the cells in that area or anatomically realizing that there is a missing spectrum of, okay, there's obviously something missing here because we had a measurement beforehand and the measurement's now different, can start to regrow parts of your body. Actually, a great example is surgery. And this is where I'm going to also go into the explaining the benefit of why learning how to bioelectrically interact with the agenda of these particular cells and structures in particular areas are going to become super, super beneficial from a health standpoint. So when you go into surgery, you want a surgeon that's looking at you like you're a machine, right? You have nooks and crannies, you have bolts, and you have levers and all of these different types of mechanical operations that are existing inside of all of us, and never so one of our cells. Of course, surgeon's not operating on your cells, particularly objective, because it's more scientifically objective. But when you go into surgery, the surgeon is in full control of the majority of the aspects that's occurring, where the cut is occurring, how the stitch will be laid. There are a lot of things that we've taken into our own hands that we're able to create our own agenda for, generate our own agenda for. However, I think one of the interesting things, and it's also brought up in the video up top by Michael, is that when you get sent home, from surgery, it's then left up to the agency of your material to do the rest of the work. And so, depending on if there's any sort of, say, cellular degradation, or mechanical issues with the operations that are occurring in your body, for whatever a reason and occurrence that would be, this could truly hamper healing and the way that your body responds to what should be occurring. And so this really cool thing of, okay, so from a bioelectrical agental material standpoint, we take cells from your body, we teach them. So we say, okay, we understand that there you lost your leg, right? And underneath your leg, all of the cells from that atomical area said, seal the wound, scar, 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 seal the wound, right? This is a means of your survival. So the body knows to try and seal the wound up so that you don't bleed out or die. Well, one of the things that could be done with this agental material, which has already been done, I think, in mice, and is slowly coming to mammal testing already publicly, is the ability to take cells from your existing infrastructure, give them the substrate. So not even say essentially scaffolding them, building them into the position and the way that you want them to be, just giving them the information through these bioelectric. And oh man, 808, I want you to come up because you were the one who used these ion gradient membranes, these ion channels, where you could distribute this signal in a fashion and way that gives the agency a particular direction of the cells. And then the coolest part about it is that because there is already this inept agency inside of our biological material, you could push these cells into, say, somewhere like your scarred leg, and it then these cells go and react with all the other cells in the area, telling them, no, we're building a leg. We're not scarring, we're building a leg right now. And so all of the other cells in that area will then begin to work with those cellular material. And through the test, of course, that they've done, through one 24-hour session of pushing these bioelectrical drug signals through these ion channels in the membranes, have been able to have a year and a half of leg growth occur from just one 24-hour session. So I think that is remarkable in itself. And I'm coming towards the end of me wanting to speak about the video, but I know we got some great minds up here. 808, you came up, man. I'm so happy. And Dazzling, you got your hand up, so please go ahead, guys.
Have we, from an evolutionary standpoint, have we gotten any better at, say, repairing those wounds or cuts up until this point where we're able to do it kind of, I guess, manually to ourselves? Have we evolved to a point where, yeah, we've gotten better at doing that?
I wouldn't say evolve, Dad. I would say better at understanding what we already know to now we're understanding how to apply it using other means, such as understanding what death is explaining. There's a lot that has been going on with stem cell research that has actually been bringing about a lot of old and historical knowledge, like implementing biomaterials from other plants and how they regrow themselves, to even lizards and their tails, understanding how their cells communicate with each other to restructure themselves, to how our nails regrow themselves, our hair, teeth. There's a lot of things that our body already does, and we're just understanding them more so at the quantum mechanic kind of level, down to their ions and down to the gradient level of how they interact with each other, to the electrical means. Like these, our cells together function at high electrical grid kind mechanisms, where we see huge cities that need a lot of power. But within our small city, within our bodies, we don't need a lot of power to function the way we function. Our bodies and cells deliver that power naturally, which is wild. Our brains function and tells our bodies to do things with electrical power that they create themselves, and that's wild. And we are at a point where we're better understanding these things with the technology we already have. And by having the technology we already have being better to communicate with each other, we are breaking down barriers to see further than what we are able to do. Which why I'm so glad and always fascinated with technology and the evolution of it. We always had these different types of technology around and strength in them, but the way that they were separated didn't allow for growth with what we're seeing today, with understanding a lot of these things. Even within our own bodies, there's a lot of things that we are still rediscovering and then discovering newer stuff from the things that we are rediscovering, like adding different plants and things to tonics that we can drink that can help build antibodies, which then create a stronger foundation at a chemical molecular level within our bodies that makes us even stronger, which we had degraded for over our like generations, which is crazy to even say, but that's just the truth. And having a lot of these technologies even prove that is mind blowing. But yeah, it's having these things, man. I sat in that discussion actually, that and it was mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm so keen to jump in.
Much
So
ideas
it
come
seems as though it's broken. Sorry, I was going to say. So it seems as though without kind of manual interference, we're not really our evolutional state fairly stagnant, I guess. So it's kind of a good thing that we're playing around with this technology. But you brought this to my attention, starfish, right? So I know that there's a starfish that if you cut the limbs off, it'll literally grow an entire new starfish from that limb that you cut off, right? And then we jokingly said years ago, because this is a long time ago that I heard this, and we jokingly said, "Oh, can we just grab the DNA strands from that and just chop our legs off and like inject ourselves with it so we can grow our limbs back?" I mean, are we using any of this? These like, are we playing around with anything there at all?
Ooh,
Or
here's the coolest part about some of that, Dazzling. So, I'm not sure particularly about starfish, although I know they are highly intelligent. And so, for what they are, I think that would be actually really interesting. I'm going to look into that. But worms. So, there are gut intestinal worms that if you take the worm and you cut it in three places from head to the bottom, it will over time grow three completely different worms. Coolest part about it is the cellular retention of memory, not and maybe not directly as we think of it as identity of memory, right? Like how we think of ourselves being from a personality standpoint, but the articulation of stored memory exists the same in all three of the worms. And I think this also goes further into talking about our cells and all of bioelectric substance and interaction between the.
It does that. It does. I just was gonna just piggyback off you with sciatic nerve systems and sciatic damage. Stem cell research, actually leapt in evolution to allow repairment of your sciatic nerve system. Where if the damage is repairable, there's things that you can do that they will take from your stem cells that will allow regrowth of what you were discussing with. The historical data of the main brain from before it was destroyed, which our bodies have that cellular data within our cells, within our stem cells, which our stem cells has all the data from our own agentile being from when we're born in our um, inside our mother's wombs, which is wild, and and the study of it really pushed forth the evolution in stem cell and neurological research combined. Like I said, like at one point, a lot of these technologies were separated, where together they allowed us to discover more things. Like how a neurological network works. What I mean, when you have so many different outcomes from when you add another letter into the equation, we can say. But yeah, good stuff.
Sorry about that. There, I was just washing my hand. It is incredible, and it speaks to to my opinion the larger substrate of biomaterial in itself, and all of the possibilities being so vastly, like, almost infinite when you think about the mathematical possibilities, and what we look at life today and the way that our agentile material is particularly interacting through these evolutionary processes that have occurred through emergence and entropy. The true, though, understanding that if this biomaterial is under this realm of agency in its own, what we'll be able to do with it is, well, it's unfathomable. I mean, when you speak about traveling the stars and being in outer space, I don't think there's anything that says that there couldn't be such dense bioelectric molecular formations that maybe we were able to live in harsh conditions in outer space, right? Radiation and all of the different.
Man, I could tie in your other space you had. I wish I was in Cosmic Minds with what we're talking about because they're all connected. What we are as human beings is very, man. It's always mind blowing because even our ancestors understood that we are always creating, even in our thoughts. Our thoughts create. We create within our body. So crazy, but yeah, I gotta go. I'm on the road, that's why. But I'm gonna go sit back down. Love it always. Hello, thanks, Dad.
No, thank you, aloha, brother. I appreciate you for coming up, 808. And I know, I kind of haggled you there to come up, so glad you did. Vet, I saw you on mute. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I would just say see you later. 808.
You're the best. Yeah, yeah, going to the. I like that he went back to the cosmic mind, and you know, the the infinite possibilities truly that are out there, and where we're at today, right? The stage that we're at potentially publicly is you have actors like Michael Levine and partners and other professors of biological science and other fields like photonics and photonics in general and nuclear, and there's just so many articulations of the mapping of systems. And of course, I like to coin us as in we're in the age of networking for our species. And once we achieve this fully networked operational application sense between information being able to be exchanged instantaneously from anywhere in our world and hopefully beyond that in a galactic sphere, the internet of value truly begins at that point in time. The means of value being inherently data-based set of interactions, I think also allows us to change the entire monetary structure of the way that we do interactions today, of course. But um, nonetheless, the significance technological wise is just, oh, it's funny to say that 10 years from now today, every one of us could have a cybernetic bot inside of our house with the same means of operational skills that we do and possess. And on top of that, we'd have all the time that we would ever want to be free to do whatever we would want to do with. And I think a good question is always to ask yourself, I shouldn't say good, there's no such thing, but a great question to ask yourself is, what do you do with that time? You have people like Michael Levine today who of course doing what they can with their time to map out the infrastructure of the interactions of this agentile material, right? Really knowing exactly what type of stimulus and what type of agentile area. Obviously, you think about a liver, right? We have to make sure that if we're going to give cellular information to cells to target a repair on the liver, that it doesn't have any sort of exceeding effect beyond that said agency or point. And so all of these things, the learning of the mapping of these interactions and the guidance of these signals is what's being really learned today. And I think that's why Gen AI personally is just so powerful. Of course, generative AI, but AI in general, a data aggregation tool set that allows us as humans to put all of these mathematical properties into one place and get understandable, digestible answer in which we can use to then, have some sort of articulation in our physical reality from. But nonetheless, a great conversation today, man. I really appreciate everyone for coming up. Ben, great story earlier. I really enjoyed that. And 808.
Now we know where his name coming from.
Yeah, we know a lot. We know a lot. We know he likes old horror movies. Which movies in particularly too. Yeah. But Dazzling and everyone else, appreciate you guys. Love everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of the night. We'll be back most likely Thursday this week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So look forward to seeing everyone then. Night, everyone.